Parents, the following program is intended for people over the age of 13. If your kids are younger than that, please use the YouTube Kids app.
Welcome to Scary Stories, the channel that tells you scary stories.
Peter Bernard's Scary Stories for Adults.
Welcome to Scary Stories NYC. I'm your old pal Bigfoot. Well, things sure are continuing to be strange, aren't they? I know for the most part it's strange in a worse way, and I'm not trying to make light of anyone's suffering, but it's good to look on any sort of bright side that you can find. For instance, only now, for a limited time, can you order a triple lupa from Taco Bell. By the time the crisis is over, you won't be able to get this rare treat any longer. Each of your days right now can have something special about them, even if every other moment of that day was a total downer. It can help to avoid feeling sad if you look to and appreciate those unexpected moments, or even help create them for others. For example, this happened to one of my human assistants yesterday. He was walking back from the supermarket when people from both sides of the street he was walking down started cheering and banging on pots and pans to each other. Here, check out this video. And it goes on a lot longer than that, too. What does it ultimately mean? Well, it means nothing to the intellect, but it means a lot symbolically to our real selves sitting behind our intellect. It's just a way to cheer each other up and to remind each other that it's a good thing to stay as positive as you can stay. And speaking of people who brighten our day and give us hope, today's executive producer is our newest, as I type this, Helena McGraw. Helena just joined us yesterday and we're especially grateful to her. Ms. McGraw's kind donation helps offset the people forced to cancel because of the financial impact of the current crisis. By the way, if that's you and you need to cancel because of the current world situation, then drop me a line and we'll keep you on our list for free until we all get through this thing. But those wonderful people like Helena McGraw, who can still manage to donate during these unsure times, we thank you doubly for your sacrifice. Thanks to Ms. McGraw, we can now get on to our scary Dogman story. This one was sent in to me as supposedly being a real story that happened just recently. I asked for some proof in this case because it's so current, and I don't want to present anything as fact which might get people upset. That would be irresponsible. The guy told me where this supposedly took place, and told me which police station he allegedly called afterward. He claimed this was all on the level, but when I called that same police station and asked them if it were true that someone had reported seeing Dogman on the outskirts of one particular small town, those police just hung up on me. I'm probably on some goofball list now because I decided to fact-check this story contributor. So, we're just going to present that story as urban legend or entertainment, take your pick. It can also be taken as a cautionary tale. Forget about Dogman or any sort of cryptid or mythological monster, whether real or imaginary. The streets are a lot emptier than usual right now. So, wherever you go, remember that and take extra precautions. If you do need to go out, be careful and take care of yourself. Even if Dogman doesn't exist, never existed, and never will exist, there are still all sorts of figurative werewolves out there in the world ready to take advantage of the unwary traveler. on the lonely, unguarded road. And with that attitude, and from that headspace, let us present our story, which puts forth the unlikely and unhappy possibility of the empty streets Dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC, in response to your last email, I do not agree with you that telling all the details of my story would cause some kind of War of the Worlds situation. Nevertheless, I will tell the story again, this time leaving out any place names to satisfy your conditions. If I'm dissatisfied with the end results, I reserve the right to possibly take my story to some other program. I am speaking, of course, about the story I sent earlier, in which I encountered what has to be a Midwest dogman, or skinwalker, or something of that nature, when I was walking with my 2 sons last week. I don't honestly know for certain what we encountered, as I did not get evidence. I have no fur, no DNA, not even a blurry photo. I know I saw something with a dog's hind legs that somehow stood bipedally. Imagine you're having a nightmare, and it got invaded by a basketball player in a furry costume. It was the most unnerving thing I've ever seen, and it just happened the other day. I would think that I was hallucinating somehow, but both my sons were with me, and their version of events nearly matches my own. We can't be sure what we encountered. We aren't certain at all what exactly happened, but we all know that something outside of our imaginations had to have actually occurred for all 3 of us to report that we were scared out of our wits by a very tall, a very thin, dog-headed monster. I live in a suburb of a medium-sized city in the middle of the country. I would love to tell you more than that, but I'm being muzzled by your old pal Bigfoot. The center of my town usually has a lot of car and foot traffic, and is honestly at peak times just as busy as the streets of Manhattan, which I have visited. Well, let me say that a medium busy street in New York City is as busy as we would normally get during our peak hours. The outskirts of our town doesn't get much car or foot traffic at all. In fact, the last 3 or 4 minutes of my drive home, I don't think I've ever seen anyone out walking at all. I know for a fact that I've never seen someone I didn't already know walking around my neighborhood. There's just no reason to be there if you don't live there. Once you reach our area, there's nothing beyond but the forest. It's basically a dead end. That's probably a natural feature which has kept us safe. Anyone who doesn't belong there stands out like a sore thumb, so burglars tend to choose less conspicuous houses to rob. Recently, my wife, myself, and my oldest son have all been temporarily laid off, and we've been huddling together at home, playing the same video games over and over again, waiting for life to get back to normal. The only time we go out is to drive to Walmart for supplies. The last time we went out, I had to fill up the tank, and it started to dawn on me that gas is costing a lot of money relative to our currently reduced budget. My eldest son, let's call him Simon, mentioned that most of the supplies we needed were on sale for comparable prices at a dollar store that was about 2.5 or 3 miles away. He knew a path to walk there, avoiding highways that took about an hour, and he suggested that he and I grab some big shoulder bags to carry stuff home in, and then go shopping, using our legs and backs instead of expensive gasoline. Moments like that, I'm very proud of that young man. We grabbed my next oldest son, who we can call Frank, and we set off to see how many supplies they really sold at this shopping center that Simon was aware of. There were other stores built around that parking lot, as it turned out. They each called themselves something different: hardware, clothing, 99-cent store, groceries. But then when you would go inside, they were all basically the same store each time, with a slight variation on what they sold. The stuff we wanted that wasn't there had weird knockoff versions that seemed good enough. We were going to be able to get all that we needed and save money on gas, so it was Simon's hour to shine. We were in a very good mood when we started back, but only about 7 or 8 minutes into the walk, The air started to get chilly, and we could hear thunder booming off at a great distance behind us. Initially, we couldn't see the storm back there, so we decided to walk more quickly to try to get home before the rain came. We hadn't really thought about how much slower we would need to walk on the way back weighted down with our groceries. Then again, we hadn't expected to have to rush back. The sky was darkening. The wind was beginning to whip around, sometimes tossing dust in our faces and in our mouths and in our eyes. We were unable to move faster. Instead, we were moving much more slowly. I thought about giving up and taking a cab home, but looking around, I didn't see much civilization about us. We could probably get one kind of cab or another to pick us up if we went back to the shopping center, but we were already 10 minutes into our walk, and that would mean literally walking back toward the storm we were trying to avoid. We kept marching forward as fast as we could manage, but I resolved that if I saw a place to stay dry waiting for a cab to arrive, then maybe I'd get on my phone and spring for that. The walk that Simon had picked out for us was really one back street leading to another. It was skirting the edge of one town, then swinging around the edge of the next one. Even in normal times, it would likely have been a fairly lonely walk, but because of the current world situation, obviously, it seemed post-apocalyptic. We saw nobody on that walk home. People's yards and garbage lids were blown all over by the wind, and nobody had come out to fix any of it. We actually put lawn gnomes back in place, and so forth, on our way back. I'm not sure if we did it as a courtesy to those homeowners who didn't really seem to care, or if we did it to make the walk home a little less depressing and nightmarish. Frank was clearly spooked, and I was even starting to expect zombies to run out from behind some of the houses at various points. We were walking down a street lined with bungalow-style one-story houses on our left and a very deep forest on our right that extends for miles. It was not the edge of our own town, but the next one over. Since I'm not being allowed to tell you the name of either place, I guess that fact isn't even relevant. Anyway, we came around this bend in the road toward the left, and there it was, walking down the center of the street like it was the owner. I'm going to try not to use labels to describe what the three of us saw. I'm going to attempt to just describe it. It looked like a tall, skinny man, and yet it gave off a presence that seemed unnaturally athletic and strong. So in spite of seeming skinny, it did not seem weak at all. It moved very quickly, and it almost always seemed in motion somehow. It also gave off a vibe of being very intelligent, even though I don't know why I say that, and it might have been a projection on my part. Both my sons have expressed a similar notion, though, so if it was a hallucination, it would need to be classified under mass delusion. This being was covered in fur like a bear, but longer. I guess you could say it looked like long, wavy, matted dog fur. It seemed to be covered in patches of mud, or at least something mud-like. I bet it smelled horribly, but the wind was at our backs, and mercifully, we did not have to smell the thing. It sounds like I'm describing a Bigfoot so far, doesn't it? I did it that way on purpose, because that's what we thought we were experiencing. Eventually, though, our eyes got all the way upstairs to see the cranium of the creature. It was not the head of a Bigfoot we were looking at. It was not a googway or any of these things I see people talking about. It was not an ape with a long snout. It was a dog head on a thin, bear-like body with ape or even human-like arms that ended in sharp, clawed, hand-like paws. I was asked once if it could have been a skinny bear, and I responded that if it were, it had to have been some previously unclassified kind of bear, because the ears were shaped much more like the ears of a wolf. They were kind of like longer wolf ears, somewhat taller and thinner than average, but still essentially triangular and canine in look and nature. When we get to talking about the Dogman's eyes, each of the three of us have a different thing to say about them. I, for one, saw nothing but eye shine reflected out of those eyes, and it gave the creature a very supernatural or paranormal kind of appearance. It was emerging from the darkness around the corner. It had eyes shining at us like some sort of demon. The storm was approaching us from the rear, with the skies occasionally lighting up and flickering off the nightmare figure in front of us. Simon tells us that he saw the creature's eyes light up red whenever they would make eye contact, and he felt that it was firing some sort of evil energy out of its eyes. I felt nothing of the sort, and neither did Frank, although Frank did claim that the creature was broadcasting telepathically. He was surprised when we said that we didn't hear the transmission, as the message was clearly not intended for him personally. He described it as sounding more like a Hanoi Hana sort of propaganda broadcast meant to demoralize us. The voice in my son's head was reportedly repeating over and over that we had been captured, that we had no choice but to surrender, and that we were to be dealt with in any way the Dogman saw fit. I don't know what to make of all that. He said it wasn't in English. It was like a radio broadcast spoken in the language of intention, and he fully understood every thought. I wonder which of the three of us was most correct in our perception of the monster. I saw a furry basketball player on dog's hind legs towering over us. I thought I was watching it thinking about what to do next. That's what it seemed like to me. It was looking back and forth between us, sizing us up, and planning what it wanted to do next. It frightened me when I wondered if it was more intelligent than we were, but you can make the argument that I put that idea in my own head. Instead of looking for reasons to feel worried, I probably should have been thinking of plans to outwit the beast and protect my family. I'm not very proud of my choices on that evening, to be completely honest. It's caused me to rethink my entire approach to life, and I admit, my personal philosophy is currently in flux. As father, it was my job to lead us to safety, but instead, this story is one of those with a Deus Ex Machina device in it. In other words, we got rescued by someone totally random. We didn't earn our own safety, but I'll get around to that in a moment. I don't know what we would have done if we hadn't been rescued, and Simon has told me that he also had run out of ideas before he even started. We would have had to abandon our hard-won groceries and make a run for it, each going in a different direction through the woods. I'm not sure what else we could have done, but nothing like that happened. Instead, we were all taken by stunned surprise when the front door to a house loudly slammed open, and a burly, angry-looking bald man stepped outside in his bathrobe, holding the largest Krieghoff Trumpf drilling I'd ever seen in my life. He had it aimed toward the Dogman. "I thought I told you to stay off my street," the man growled before firing off a round a foot or so in front of the Dogman, causing my family and me to hit the ground face down and causing the monster to immediately retreat into the woods. The man was cursing up a blue streak, and it took me a few shocked moments to realize that he was now cursing at us. He was saying something about how we were damn fools, and we'd better get home and not do anything stupid like this ever again. We grabbed our stuff and skedaddled away from there as fast as we could, not saying a word to the angry guy. He had saved our lives, but honestly, he was almost as scary as the Dogman himself, and we all just wanted to get home, which is what we did. Now, I don't care if you believe me about this story or not. Maybe it was a bear. Maybe it was a freak giant wolf standing because its front paw was hurt. Maybe I just made the story up entirely, but you listen to me. If you're walking through an area that had little traffic before all this stuff started going down, just realize it probably has even less traffic now. Less, human traffic, that is. And where there's a vacuum, nature likes to try to fill it. Even if you don't believe in Dogman, you probably believe in science. Aristotle said, nature abhors a vacuum, and where humans have retreated, something else will naturally be sucked in to take our place. If not the Dogman, fine, then it'll be bears, or mountain lions, or coyotes, or even renegade wild humans who had been avoiding civilization up till now. If you're planning to walk in a low-traffic area, you take extra precautions because you don't know who, or what, else is aware that it's a low-traffic area. So, no, I'm not trying to freak people out or cause a riot. I'm only here to remind all of you to be extra careful and keep extra calm. Now I bet you're expecting me to say that once we got home, we decided gas wasn't that expensive after all, and that we'd never again attempt something like that. Untrue. In fact, we are planning another trip next week, but with some added precautions. First of all, we're going to pick a day guaranteed to be sunny. Second, we're going to leave far earlier in the day. And third, we're going to follow an entirely different path. It's a bit longer, but it will lead us through town centers and through areas that are at least partially still open. It's a path that won't lead us past the empty streets. Dogman.
My, what a nice spring evening. Wow, whatever made that howl sure sounded close. It's amazing how even the prettiest spring sunset can turn scary when there's a chance that the Dogman may be near. I'm Madeline Starr, and I'll be hosting the Dogman Scary Springtime Special right here on Scary Stories NYC. And now, here's another scary Dogman story.
And now, get ready for an all-new, completely uncensored, slightly bloody, and absolutely terrifying new Dogman story. Oh, wait. YouTube won't allow me to tell you stories like that on this channel. If you want to hear that, you're going to have to go to peterbernard.com and sign up for our paid subscribers club. You can choose any price you can afford for a 1-month subscription, and then every weekend, we tell you a story YouTube would never allow us to tell you on this channel. See you this Sunday for an all-new, very scary, completely uncensored Dogman story.
Come back for more scary stories.